What is up, duelists? Super Insane 18 here, and today we are going to be bringing you the how to play through hand trap guide for Atlantean Mermail, so let's go ahead and jump on in. For combo number 1, we are going to show you what to do in the instance of your opponent using either Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, or Ash Blossom on your Neptibus, because they all essentially accomplish the same result, which is that the Neptibus cannot add from your deck to your hand, but we can still full combo with that, so let's show you guys how it's done. All you need is the Neptibus, any water monster to discard, and a few other discards for the combo. So we will start our combo as we always do with the normal summon of the Neptibus, activating its effect to send 4 cost, meaning that even if your opponent activates the Imperm, they cannot stop this. So we'll go ahead and send the Shadow Squad as cost, and then they hand trap it, and we can no longer get the add to our hand. That, however, is still going to allow us to use our Shadow Squad because it was sent to activate the effect of a water monster, allowing the Shadow Squad to go ahead and summon out the copy of Abyss Pike, which on summon will activate its effect, allowing us to discard our water monster, adding a level 3 water, which is of course going to be our Abyss Rhine, and the Abyss Rhine is going to get us exactly where we need to go because we can use the Abyss Rhine to tribute itself and the Neptibus, which will allow us to special summon out the Super Ancient Deep Sea King Coelacanth from our deck, and then of course the Neptibus is going to activate reborning either the squad or the Rhine, it does not matter which one, but the important part is that we got to our Coelacanth. We can go ahead and take the Pike and whatever we reborned off of the Neptibus and link those off into the copy of Haggard Lizardos. This is to get us an additional draw in the combo, but now we can go ahead and utilize the Coelacanth effect, discarding a card. We are going to summon out the Reptolfin, the Butterfly Fish, and another copy of Pike. Here we can go ahead and utilize the Haggard Lizardos, banishing it to draw a card, and we're just going to show you that the draw does not matter. We are just replacing resources at this point, but we can then use the Grethus and the Pike to synchro off into our copy of White Aura Monoceros. On summon, the Monoceros is going to go ahead and allow us to reborn back out our Grethus, and next we can use the Grethus effect to summon from our graveyard a water that is the level equivalent of the number of cards in our opponent's hand or lower. They should have around 4 cards because they only hand trapped us once, so we're going to go ahead and special summon back out any of our level 3s, does not matter which one. The reason this is important is because we're going to use all of our level 3s, again since Grethus is a tuner. This is going to allow us to go into our copy of Trishula. The reason Trishula is important is because we do need our opponent to have a banished card for the Deep Sea Prima Donna later in the combo, so on the summon of Trishula we will be able to activate its effect, banishing cards from our opponent's hand and graveyard, which will then allow us to have that banished material that we need later. Here we are going to take the White Aura Monoceros and the Super Ancient Deep Sea King Coelacanth, and we are going to overlay them into our copy of Abyss Trite, and Abyss Trite on summon is going to go ahead and reborn out our Abyss Pike so that we have it later as a level 4 for the synchro materials that we will need. We then overlay the effect or the Abyss Trite into the Poseidra Abyss, and taking the Poseidra Abyss and the Trishula, we are going to go ahead and link off into our copy of Coral Anemone. We can then utilize the effect of the Poseidra Abyss, discarding another one of our cards. This is going to reborn back out the Grethus, any of our level 3s except for the Butterfly Fish, and the Neptibus. The Neptibus will be important later as part of the combo as well. Here we are going to take the Grethus and the Abyss Pike. These are going to go into our copy of Deep Sea Prima Donna, and then we can use the graveyard effect of the Butterfly Fish. This is going to allow us to summon it back to our side of the field by discarding a card, and the reason that that is important is because we want more level 3s on our board. We're then going to use the Coral Anemone. This is going to go ahead and reborn back out our Grethus, and again utilizing our 3 level 3s for a synchro summon, we are going to go into our copy of Ravenous Crocodragon. On summon, the Crocodragon is going to allow us to draw cards equal to the number of non-tuners used, meaning we get 2 draws, and again we're just going to show you that the draws do not matter, we are just replenishing cards in our hand hand at this point, but once that is done, we can utilize the effect of Deep Sea Prima Donna, returning the cards that were banished off Trishula to our opponent's hand, to then go ahead and special summon out our copy of Barrier Statue. Here what we can do is we can then go ahead, take the Prima Donna and the Neptibus, and we're going to synchro those off into our copy of Dragite, giving us a Spell Trap Negate as well, and then the Deep Sea Prima Donna can activate its effect, allowing us to take the Haggard Lizardos that we have banished and put it back into our extra deck for us to use later. So what do we have off of the Neptibus getting either Ashed, Impermed, or Veiler? We still have the Barrier Statue with the Crocodragon to protect it from whatever they normal summon, a Spell Trap Negate, and of course if we have any waters left in our hands, we get the draw off of the Abyss Rhine as well, and we get some follow-up if we use the Coral Anemone. We'll probably have to get rid of that, but there actually is also a split line of play here, so let's go ahead and backtrack a couple steps just to show you guys what we can do if we do that split line of play. And we have now rewound the game state to the point where we had just finished resolving the Poseidra Abyss, giving us these monsters on board, and the next move is to go ahead and Synchro Summon. We are going to use the Grethus and the Pike once again to Synchro Summon into our copy of the Prima Donna. Again, this will allow us to utilize the effect of the Butterfly Fish, discarding a card to summon it back out, and then we can use the Coral Anemone to once again special back out the Grethus. Now here we're going to sacrifice the Dragite, which will give us one less negate, but it will give us the ability to not be targeted, by taking the Coral Anemone and the Neptibus and going into our copy of King Neptibus. Now this is good if you want to prevent your Barrier Statue from being targeted by something like Imperm, but then we will continue the combo as normal using the Grethus and the Butterfly Fish. We are going to go ahead and synchro into our copy of Crocodragon, and utilizing the Crocodragon, we of course draw our two cards that do not matter, and then the Deep Sea Prima Donna can go ahead and summon out our Barrier Statue, and now we have an untargetable field with Interruption to protect our Barrier Statue, 3 cards in hand, and once again, if we have the water, we get an additional draw off of the Abyss Rhine. Now, for the next 3 combos that I'm going to be showing you guys, I would like to dedicate it to this lovely user that left this comment on my channel, just to show you guys that Droll is not the end of the world. You still have plenty of combos that you can play through it, so these are going to be the combos through Droll. For the first one, it is going to be Neptibus with no additional waters, just a few discards that we're going to need, and as always, we will start with the normal summon of Neptibus and activate its effect, allowing us to send the squad from our deck to our graveyard, and utilizing the Neptibus to add us our copy of Abyss Rhine. Here, squad will become Chainlink 1, and then our opponent can activate Droll as Chainlink 2, meaning that we will not get any additional adds for the remainder of this turn, but because we searched the Abyss Rhine, we are a-okay. The squad is going to go ahead and summon out our copy of Dragoons, which, keep in mind, this is a very important summon for later, and we can then utilize the Abyss Rhine to send itself plus the Neptibus to our graveyard, allowing us to summon our copy of Coelacanth, and Coelacanth is the absolute king here, because what we are going to do now is utilize the effect of the Neptibus, since it was sent off the Rhine, to summon out our squad, and squad is going to discard to level modulate the entire field to 7. Utilizing the Dragoons and the squad, we can go ahead and overlay into a copy of Abyss Gaios. As I said, the Coelacanth is king. We are going to discard an additional card here. That is going to allow us to summon out our copy of Grethus, Butterfly Fish, and Pike to our side of the field, and then we can utilize the Grethus and the Pike to sync into our copy of Monoceros. We can then utilize the Monoceros effect on summon to reborn out our Grethus, and we can go ahead and overlay the Monoceros and the Coelacanth into the Abyss Trite, making sure that is in the extra monster zone, because we do need both of these zones. The reason we need both of these zones is because the Abyss Trite is going to reborn out our copy of Pike, and with the final zone, we will utilize the effect of Grethus, allowing us to summon back out the Rhine from our graveyard to our side of the field. Similarly to the last combo, we need to ensure that we banish cards from our opponent, so with the 3 level 3s that we have on our side of the field, we can go ahead and Synchro Summon into a copy of Trishula, utilizing its effect to banish the cards that we need. We can then take the Abyss Trite and overlay it into our copy of Poseidra, and then utilizing the Poseidra plus the Trishula, we are going to go ahead and summon out the Marincess Coral Anemone. The Poseidra will then allow us to discard out our whatever we want to discard, and that is going to allow us to summon out our Grethus, our Butterfly Fish, and our Neptibus back from our graveyard to utilize for the remainder of the combo. Here we can take the Greethus and the Pike, and we can go ahead and turn them into a copy of Deep Sea Prima Donna, which we can then use the effect to go ahead and summon out our Barrier Statue by returning the banished cards. We can then take the Coral Anemone and the Butterfly Fish, and turn those into our King Neptibus. And finally, what we can do is taking the Neptibus and the Prima Donna, we will go ahead and turn those into a copy of Dragite. Now, this is the full setup. We have an untargetable board with the Barrier Statue, a Spell Trap Negate, and a Skill Drain on legs. Now, here is the really important point. Remember earlier when I said it was important that we utilized the Dragoons? The reason for that is because when we activate the effect of Gaios, we can detach the Dragoons, allowing us to add a Sea Serpent. In this case, it's going to add us our copy of Heavy Infantry, which can be discarded off of the effect of our Abyss Rhine, wherever she is, and that will allow us to then destroy a card on our opponent's field, giving us the pop that we need to protect our Barrier Statue from the normal summon. So again, we still ended up full comboing. You could do it even better if you wanted to discard the Shadow Squad, because Shadow Squad can summon something and give you follow-up, but I think it's better to protect the Barrier Statue. So again, really cool combo through Droll and Lockbird, using just Neptibus and some discards. Now, for the next combo through Droll and Lockbird, what can we do with a copy of Neptibus and Poseidra? The Poseidra actually changes our end board quite significantly, so we will start with the normal summon of the Neptibus, utilizing its effect, sending our copy of Squad, and because we have the Poseidra, we can go ahead and add our copy of Dragoons. Now, you might be thinking, why are we adding the Dragoons if we are expecting to be Drolled? Don't worry, we have a plan. The Squad will become Chainlink 1, and our opponent will activate the Droll as Chainlink 2. Now we can no longer add. The Squad is going to summon out our copy of Rhine, which is doubly important. The reason is because we need a level 3 on our board, but we also want to get the Rhine back to our hand. How are we going to do that? We are going to utilize the Poseidra, summoning it to our side of the field by sending our Neptibus, which of course activates the Neptibus effect, allowing us to reborn out our copy of Squad. Now, unlike the last combo, we are not going to use the Squad to level modulate our field because it's important that we have our level 3s. Utilizing the Squad and the Abyss Sprite, we can go ahead and overlay into our copy of Lavertu Dragon, and the cool thing about Lavertu Dragon is when you utilize its effect to detach and add a card, you can actually add the card that you detached, which is exactly what we are doing. We are going to detach the Abyss Rhine, and then utilizing the Abyss Rhine effect, we can go ahead and add it back to our hand, or rather, utilizing the Lavertu Dragon effect, we can add the Abyss Rhine back to our hand. And now with the Abyss Rhine back in our hand, we can utilize it, having completely circumvented the Droll and Lockbird, to summon out our copy of Coelacanth by sending our Poseidra, putting the Poseidra in the graveyard for later use. Once we have the Coelacanth on field, we can go ahead and discard our card. This is going to summon out our Greethus, our Butterfly Fish, and because we have the room, we get to summon 2 copies of Pike. Here we are going to take the Greethus and one of the Pikes, and this is going to summon out our copy of White Aura Monoceros. Here, the Monoceros is going to reborn out our copy of Greethus, and then taking the Monoceros and the Coelacanth, we are going to overlay into our copy of Abyss Trite. Abyss Trite on summon is going to reborn out a level 3. In this instance, it's going to be the Abyss Rhine, because once again, we have to utilize our Trishula to ensure that we are able to banish a card. So taking the Reptolfin, the Butterfly Fish, and the Abyss Rhine, we can go ahead and synchro into our copy of Trishula, banishing cards from our opponent as well, which will let our Prima Donna be live later on in the combo. Next, we are going to overlay the Abyss Trite into our copy of Poseidra, and then we are going to take the Lavertu Dragon and the Poseidra, linking those off into a copy of Marincess Coral Anemone, once again allowing us to utilize the Poseidra. We are going to discard our card, and we will summon out a copy of Greethus, any level 3, and our Neptibus. Here we are going to take the Greethus and the Abyss Pike, and this is going to allow us to go into our copy of Prima Donna, which will allow us to then utilize its effect, returning the banished cards to our opponent's hand, getting us into our copy of Barrier Statue. Here we can then take the Prima Donna and the Neptibus, and we will synchro those off into our copy of Dragite. But the really cool thing here is that we can then go ahead and utilize the effect of Coral Anemone to re-summon back out our Prima Donna. Prima Donna's attack is 1500, meaning that it fully fits within the effect of the Coral Anemone. Here we are going to take the Coral Anemone and the Trishula that we still have left over. We are going to go into our copy of Neptibus, and then we can finally take the Prima Donna and the Abyss Rhine, because it is a tuner after all, the Prima Donna, and that is going to go into our copy of Chengying. Now, I could have positioned this a little better. We can pretend that the Dragite is here and that the Trish was here. It realistically doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but the positioning could have been a little better. But this leaves us again with untargetable barrier statue, a spell trap negate. The Chengying is going to be able to banish cards our opponent controls, acting as the way to clear the normal summon, allowing the barrier statue to survive. And of course, we have the Abyss Rhine, which will allow us to pitch the Dragoons to draw a card. Dragoons will grab us Neptibus, which is full follow-up for the next turn. And again, we completely circumvented our opponent having Droll and Lockbird. For our third and final Droll combo, it is another Neptibus combo, this time with a copy of the Teus. Let's show you guys how it is done. It will start off the same as the previous one. Neptibus will be summoned, and utilizing its effect, we will send our copy of Squad. Neptibus will of course add us our Dragoons. Squad becomes Chainlink 1, and the Droll becomes Chainlink 2. We no longer get to add. Once again, the squad is going to go ahead and summon out our copy of Abyss Rhine, and here what we are going to do is utilize the effect of the Teus. We will discard the Dragoons to summon. Feels bad because we don't get either add, but it is very important, because taking the Neptibus and the Teus, we can go into our copy of Coral Anemone, and now the Coral Anemone is going to go ahead and allow us to get our squad back to our side of the field. Here we are going to take the Rhine and the Shadow Squad, and we are going to overlay them into our copy of Lavertu Dragon, and utilizing the same trick as the previous combo, the Lavertu Dragon will detach the Rhine and then add Rhine back to our hand. Now, you might be questioning, how are we going to utilize the Rhine? We do not have any Mermails or Atlanteans, but thankfully we can make one. Utilizing the Anemone and the Lavertu Dragon, we can go ahead and go into our copy of the King Neptibus, and King Neptibus is a Mermail, so we will use the Rhine tributing the King Neptibus, which feels bad, but the alternative is not comboing at all, and that is going to get us into our copy of Super Ancient Deep Sea King Coelacanth. Again, Coelacanth is king, meaning we can full combo from here on out, utilizing its effect to discard a card. We are going to summon out our Greethus, our Butterfly Fish, and 2 copies of Abyss Pike from our deck. Here, of course, we are going to utilize a Greethus and a Pike to synchro summon into a copy of White Aura Monoceros, making sure that it is in the extra monster zone to ensure that we have enough room. Of course, the Monoceros on summon is going to allow us to reborn out our copy of Greethus. We can then take the Greethus and utilize its effect to summon out our copy of Abyss Rhine, because again, we are going to have to make a Trishula for this combo. Taking the Greethus, the Butterfly Fish, and the Abyss Rhine, we can go ahead and synchro those off into our copy of Trishula, utilizing its effect to banish a card, once again turning on our Prima Donna for later in the combo. We will then take the Monoceros and the Coelacanth and overlay them into our copy of Abyss Trite, and Abyss Trite is going to go ahead and reborn back out our copy of Greethus. Here we can take our Greethus and our Pike and synchro those off into our copy of Prima Donna, and then take the Abyss Trite and overlay that into our Poseidra. With the Poseidra and the Trishula, we are of course going to go into our copy of Haggard Lizardos, which will then allow us to utilize the effect of Poseidra. Here we will discard for the effect, and that is going to summon out our copies of Greethus, Abyss Rhine, and Butterfly Fish. We can then utilize the effect of Haggard Lizardos to banish a card from our field or graveyard. We are actually going to go ahead and banish our copy of Coral Anemone so that we can get it back later in this combo. Here, the Prima Donna is going to activate its effect, once again allowing us to summon out our copy of the Barrier Statue, and then we can utilize the Prima Donna and the Abyss Rhine. This is going to go into our copy of Chengying, and we do have a little bit of extra stuff on the board. There really isn't anything that we can go into with this, but the Prima Donna will activate, allowing us to put the Coral Anemone back so that we can use it later on the following turns. We do have our Barrier barrier statue with our Changing. The Changing will be able to prevent them from just walking over that with a normal summon via the banish of the Abyss Rhine. So really strong combo, again, just being able to completely circumvent the Droll. Now, in this next section, we are going to be talking about Fulos and what we can do with a single copy of Neptibus. So let's go ahead and normal summon out our Neptibus, activating its effect to send our copy of Squad, and add Dragoons from our deck to our hand. We are going to activate the Squad, which, because it is an effect that summons from the deck, this is likely where our opponent is going to drop the Fulos, so we cannot avoid giving them a draw. We will go ahead and summon out the copy of Pike. Here they will draw, and then the Pike will activate its effect, discarding out our copy of Dragoons. That will allow the Pike to add us our copy of Abyss Rhine, and then the Dragoons is going to activate, which is going to add us another copy of Neptibus. The reason we're adding the Neptibus here is because we are trying to play as minimally as possible, and this gives us more interruption on our opponent's turn. Here we are going to take the Abyss Rhine, we are going to send the Pike end itself. This is going to add the copy of Poseidra from our deck to our hand, because remember, we can add instead of summon, and because we are Fulos, we don't want to keep giving them draws. We can utilize the Poseidra, summoning it to our side of the field by sending our copy of Neptibus to the graveyard. That will then, of course, activate the Neptibus, summoning back out our copy of Squad. We can take the Poseidra and the Squad and overlay both into our copy of Abyss Yugioh, giving them an additional draw, and that is actually going to end our turn. Now, this might not look like that threatening of a board, but this is actually 3 interruptions on its own, or 2 interruptions plus guaranteed follow-up, depends on what your opponent tries to do. The reason it is that way is because during the opponent's turn, when you activate the effect of the Abyss Yugioh, you will detach the Poseidra, putting the Poseidra in the graveyard. Once the Poseidra is in the graveyard, we can utilize the effect of the Abyss Rhine, discarding our Neptibus to draw, which will then allow the Neptibus to reborn the now graveyard Poseidra, which on summon can send a card to bounce a card. Now that's 2 interruptions with the skill drain and the bounce. Let's say hypothetically your opponent has another card you want to destroy. The Poseidra, in order to bounce, has to send a card from the deck. You can send the Heavy Infantry, which is another pop, therefore giving you a 3rd interruption, or alternatively you can send Dragoons, which will allow you to search another Neptibus, giving you the guaranteed follow-up, so we still set up 3 interruptions while minimizing the damage off of Fulos. And for the final combo into Fulos, we will show you what you can do if you have a Teus on top of your Neptibus, because that actually gives you 2 discards from your opponent's hand off of the 2 draws that they will be getting, meaning that they net no advantage, and they end with 4 cards into the same board. So what are we going to do? We are going to again normal summon the Neptibus, utilizing its effect to send the Squad, and of course add our copy of Dragoons. Squad will become Chainlink 1, and Fulos will become Chainlink 2. We cannot avoid giving them draws at this point, so we will summon out the Pike and they will get a draw. Pike is going to go ahead and discard the Dragoons. Here we will add the Abyss Rhine off of the Pike, but we also get the add off Dragoons, which is going to be the Mullen Glacier, allowing us to have additional discards. Here we are going to utilize the effect of Teus, summoning it out by discarding the copy of Rhine. That is going to allow the Teus to add us another copy of Rhine, which is incredibly important for the combo. Here we can take the Rhine and we will tribute off the Neptibus. This is going to allow us to then add our copy of Poseidra to our hand from our side of the field, and Neptibus, of course, is going to activate, summoning out our copy of Dragoons. Here we can take the Poseidra, summon it to our side of the field by getting rid of our Dragoons, which is of course going to net us another Dragoon search, getting us the Neptibus that we need to reborn the Poseidra on our opponent's turn. That is conveniently 5 waters in our graveyard, meaning that we can go ahead and rip cards out of our opponent's hand. At this point, they'd only gotten 1 draw, so they were back up to 5. They are now down to 3, and we can then take the Poseidra and the Teus and overlay them into our copy of Yugioh, giving them 1 more draw, putting them back up at 4, but we are back in the same position, albeit a little better because they have less advantage. We have the skill drain effect, which of course will detach the Poseidra. Once the Poseidra is in the graveyard, we can utilize the Rhine to discard the Neptibus, which will resummon the Poseidra, and you get everything that I told you about in the last combo. And before we move on, I did just want to give an honorable mention because, honestly, sometimes you can just full combo through the Fulos without even having to end on this half board. Because what are you ending on if you full combo? You're getting the Mermail King Neptibus, preventing your stuff from being targeted, pointing to your Croco Dragon, your Dragite, your Barrier Statue, with the Abyss Rhine in the grave, and the infantry Outplay in your hand, so you have so many ways of playing where your opponent cannot, because they cannot special summon, that a lot of times, even if you give them 30 cards, which, I mean, you're not giving them 30 cards and they have to shuffle cards back anyway, but even if you give them all of those cards, there isn't really much they can do. At that point, you're really just worried about what they draw into on their turn. Maybe they draw into a Nibiru, so it might not be worth it, but it is something worth mentioning that sometimes you can just full combo through the Fulos anyway. And there you guys have it. That is going to be how to play Mermail Atlantean through some of the most common hand traps of the format. And if you're wondering why I didn't show you how to play through something like Nibiru, it's because the deck naturally plays around Nibiru anyway, being able to search out the Deep Sea Minstrel in practically every combo and ripping it out of your opponent's hand. Nibiru is almost a non-threat for this deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something. If you did, you know the deal. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share with your friends. And as always, don't forget to check out the channel sponsor Dueling Guard. Using my code INSANE18, you can get 5% off your entire order, as well as help to support the channel so that I can continue bringing you guys this awesome content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.